What's cracking, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. New video.
I rep the West to the death, but my life is better. I've shed blood, shed tears, man, I stormed bad weather. I caught an L at 19, that's a cold-ass letter. But now I'm back in the world and trying to make it better forever. They counted me out at a young age, but now I'm living proof. I'm in this booth, I'm spitting truth, you see me on the tube. The Dub Show, homies bounce and roll. The Dub Show.
So today I went through my comments, right? And so for those of you that don't know, for content creators, there's different comments. There's comments you responded to that you can pull up. There's comments you haven't responded to. Those just pop up naturally. And then there's those that have been held for review. I haven't looked in that thing in a long time, right? So this morning I said, you know what? Let me click on that. And I clicked on it. And when I clicked on it, I found this comment by someone, and I remember his name. I'm not going to say his name. But he said that, someone that I mentioned being on the yard with me let me know that whole yard was no good, right? And he said, hey, I'm not tripping, I know who the dude is and this and that. And so I decided I want to make a video about that because, he was not being disrespectful. He was just stating his opinion from afar, right? And so I want to do a response, and I want to put things in the light that they were in, okay? And then everybody in the comment section can do whatever they want with it. You know how it is. So let me bring it back, because it all came from a video I did about a wood named Jimmy, right? Jimmy was a good dude, man, all the way around. My thought of Jimmy has never changed. When I had first entered the CDC, I didn't care about having a television in my cell. I cared about music, and I've always been that way. I like music more than I like movies and TV shows and all that, right? So when I had entered the CDC, that was back when our families could send us a TV. Our families could send us packages. We didn't have to go through all these vendors that you have to go through now. That came later, right? And I had my music. I had my cassette player, my cassettes, and homies would tell me, hey, Holmes, you should really get a TV, eh? I was like, man, I don't give a damn about a TV. I don't care about it. I don't even watch TV. And they were like, when you get to the shoe, you're not going to have shit in that cell, and you're going to be like, damn, I need a TV, and good luck on getting one, right? Well, one day, there was a wood, OG. This dude came from Old Folsom when they switched Old Folsom to a lower level, and they brought people to New Folsom. He had come during that, and he was there before me. Had done a lot of work. Like a few of us, we knew exactly who Jimmy was and what he had done for the legends, for the whites, right? Well, one day, my cell was next to the shower. He comes by and he's like, hey, what's up, bro? This and that. And I'm like, hey, what's up, Jimmy? And he goes, hey, wait a minute. He goes, hey, where's your TV? And my Sally and I, neither one of us cared about a TV. Homies had offered, and we were like, nah, we're good, right? So he's like, where's your TV? I said, nah, we don't have one, eh? I'm good. I'm bumping. And he's like, oh, nah. He goes, your homies haven't gave you a TV? I go, nah, they offered, but we're good, homies. Neither one of us trips. He's like, man, I'll be back. Goes back to his cell, gets the cop to open the door, gets his TV out of his cell, brings it to me, gets my door open, hands it to me, and he's like, hey, that's my TV, man. He goes, but as long as you're here, until you get a TV, keep it on your locker. So I'm like, man, I'm not tripping. He's like, nah, fuck that. So Jimmy did that for me, right? Well, prison being what prison is, Jimmy had a habit. And Jimmy was a hitter. Jimmy used to, have his own dope all the time. And something happened where he didn't have any dope, and he bought some dope off of somebody and didn't pay when he was supposed to pay. And so Jimmy had to get hit. Now, my camarada, somebody I was close to at the time, was the one that was going to have to hit him because he's the one that put the dope in Jimmy's hand. Being my camarada, when I find out, I said, hey, fool, I'm going with you, eh? I said, we're going to do this together. And the homie didn't have a life sentence. So I let him know, like, hey, Holmes, look, since this fall on you, I said, we're gonna smoke this dude, Holmes. And we hatched the scheme, and I'm not gonna go in. That's a whole nother video. I tried to find it so I could pin it up here for you guys. I couldn't find it. But Jimmy had more time in than me and the homie that were gonna move on him. Jimmy had done a whole lot more dirt than me and the homie. So as slick as we thought we are, or we were, Jimmy knew that he owed money, and Jimmy was watching. Jimmy figured out it was going to be that dude and me, right? And the yard we were supposed to hit him on, it was first yard. And at yard recall, I was like, hey, Jimmy, come here real quick. And because it was the homie's Harley, he was supposed to kick it off, and then we get him. And I remember calling Jimmy, and the look in Jimmy's eyes like he felt betrayed. And there were some people that made comments, you know, like, damn, how could you do Jimmy like that? You guys got to understand, prison is prison. I had love for Jimmy. I appreciated Jimmy for what he did, right? But in that world, the person that can get close to you is going to be the one that does you in, right? And the homie didn't kick it off, and I was like, so I followed him. We followed him through the rotunda, and a group of whites surrounded him, and there was probably like 5 of them that got around him. And so I look at the homie, and I'm like, fool, that was the shot right there. What the fuck? He's like, no, we're gonna get him next yard. Come out next yard. Back then, it used to be easy to get out to the yard. New Folsom didn't give a damn. This is before the 96 riot, before they started like monitoring how many people were on the yard. No, this back then in New Folsom, you would be on the yard and there'd be 6, 7, 800 dudes on the yard packed. So I'm like, okay, cool. Well, one of the whites that went over to protect and escort Jimmy was an individual by the name of Kenny Costa. And that's what this video is about. Kenny Costa, at one point, was a legend for the whites. This dude's name, he was known for violence. Of course, to be one of them, you got to do extreme acts of violence, right? And he had. And he wound up on bad terms with his people, that group, right? This was before I got to prison. And he went towards him. And one thing about Kenny is Kenny always wore handball gloves, the kind that come over your wrist. He had a tattoo on one of his wrists. And that tattoo is only worn by dudes that were legends for the whites, right? And he always kept those gloves on in order to keep it covered, right? But we were aware of it. Well, the guy in the comments said that because Kenny Costa was on that yard, everybody on the yard was no good. So that means the Crips were no good, the Kumis were no good, the Bloods were no good, the Whites were no good, the Southerners were no good, the Bulldogs were no good, and the Northerners, because there were Northerners on that yard at that time too. They were all no good. Imagine that a dude lands on the yard, and because that dude from a different faction than the one you run with, because he's on the yard, that automatically made the whole facility a no good facility. In what world is that true? In what prison world is that true? Now, when it came to Kenny Costa, as I've said in a lot of videos, when I was in YA, when I went to YA, I always gravitated towards the older homies, the homies that had 3, 4, 5, 6 years in, so I could learn from them. When I went to the joint, I did the same thing. And I was always privy to a lot of stuff. So I knew who Kenny Costa was. And I knew that on more than one occasion, the leadership for the Southerners approached the whites. What's up with this cat, man? And every time the whites said the same thing. He's a sleeper. What you guys are hearing about him, that's not accurate. Like, he's a sleeper. He's out here waiting on somebody. That was the story, right? Did we believe it? No. Was it a Southerner? No. Did he eventually wind up getting whacked off the yard? Yes. By a skinhead that a homie had whacked. He patched himself up and he hit Kenny. But it was just strange to me to hear somebody really say that if somebody from any faction lands on a yard, and mind you, this is 1995, beef facility in New Folsom. You know, I saw in the comments somebody said beef facility now is nothing but J-Cats just like you, Dubs. I'm a J-Cat? Okay. Beef facility was a gangster yard in 95, 96, 97, 90. Like, you can keep counting the years, right? There were some cold killers on beef facility at that time. And as far as the Southerners, every other faction would have to speak for themselves. 95, New Folsom, beef facility. There are guys that have put in massive amount of work. That actually, when the war kicked off in Calipatria, a lot of the guys that broke that yard in had done their shoe term and then were on beef facility with me. So to hear something like that is pretty strange to me, pretty foreign to me, because the fact that Kenny Costa was there, that was a reflection of the woods that were there and the skins that were there. I think if people are being honest, we all know on every yard, there's certain groups that don't hold the same standards as other groups. That doesn't dictate your group's standing. Since when? Now, when I went to the Bay the second time, I was able to run across two very, very legendary individuals that were legends for the whites. And one of them that I spoke to at the time, he had already had maybe like 40 years in the system. And I ran him down and I said, hey, you know, this dude Kenny was there with us. And when we're pushing it towards the whites, like, hey, what's up with this dude, man? We're basically told he's white and he's a sleeper. And I asked this man, what do you think about that? And he said, the dude wasn't a sleeper and he wasn't white. He said once he had a fallout, he ceased being anything and he was open game to anybody. He said, but at the end of the day, it didn't fall on anybody other than the whites. And it's just a trip because the person that made the comment said that he knew Kenny and was in the shoe with Kenny in 93. So by the same logic, if he was in the same pod with you or in the same block with you in 93, how didn't you hold that same standard you held to me in my video to yourself and everybody there? This is the thing that I trip out about people. And again, I'm not trying to be disrespectful because his Vato wasn't being disrespectful, but I trip out on how people pick and choose. In that scenario, let's apply it that way. But in this scenario, no, we're not going to do that. If you're saying that if a person can land where you are and their status is shit, that makes everybody their status shit, that's pretty wild and crazy. But I wanted to make a video and put it out there, and I'm interested in the comments to see what people who have actually done time, how they think about it, what they feel about it. Since when does an individual from another faction have bearing on your faction? That's the question. It's my video for today, man. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. Everybody, please be safe, be smart, and tell the ones you love that you love them, man. I'm out of here.